courtroom was suffocating, not from heat, not from noise, but from the sheer weight of tension pressing down on everyone inside. Every seat was taken, every breath held. All eyes were locked on Darius Cole, the man sitting at the defense table, his hands clasped tightly, his face etched with exhaustion, grief, and quiet resignation. Across the room, Prosecutor Andrew Lawson stood tall, his voice firm, unwavering. "Your Honor, the evidence is irrefutable. The only person responsible for Alyssa Cole's death is her husband, Darius Cole." He slammed a folder onto the table. Photos flashed on the screen. Bloodstains, crime scene reports, the final, frantic text messages Alyssa had sent before her death. "He's dangerous. I'm scared. I don't know what to do." A murmur rippled through the crowd. A woman wiped away a tear. Journalists scribbled furiously, their pens shaking. On the judge's bench, Judge Evelyn Harper adjusted her glasses, her face unreadable. She lifted her gavel slightly, preparing for the final decision. "Mr. Cole, the jury has reached a verdict. Do you have any final words before I hand down your sentence?" A heavy silence followed. Darius Cole lifted his head. His eyes, once filled with hope, were now empty. He inhaled, opened his mouth to speak. "Stop the trial! He's innocent!" The room froze. A shockwave rippled through the courtroom. Gasps erupted. People turned in their seats, craning their necks to see where the voice had come from. Standing amidst the stunned crowd was a boy, no older than 12, his fists clenched, his dark brown eyes burning with conviction. Jaden Carter. The judge's expression hardened. "Bailiff, remove that child immediately." The guards rushed toward him, but Jaden stood his ground. "You have to listen to me. If you don't, an innocent man will go to prison for the rest of his life." The courtroom exploded into chaos. Reporters leapt forward, snapping photos. The jury whispered among themselves. At the defense table, Darius Cole stared at Jaden. His eyes widened, his lips parted slightly. It was the look of a man who had just seen a ghost. But before he could react, the judge's gavel came crashing down. "Order in the court!" She turned sharply to the bailiffs. "Take the boy to my chambers. We will deal with this privately." Jaden was grabbed by the arms and escorted toward the door. But before disappearing behind the heavy wooden frame, he turned back one last time. His gaze met Darius Cole's. And in that moment, Darius knew. This boy knew something that no one else did. The air was thick and humid as Jaden pedaled through Evergreen Park, the quiet of the night stretching around him. Streetlights flickered, casting long shadows on the pavement. The occasional chirp of crickets filled the air, blending with the faint rustling of leaves. It was late, later than he should have been out. His mom would have been furious if she knew. But he had lost track of time, distracted by the thrill of racing his bike down empty streets, feeling the wind rush past his face. Then a sound cut through the night, a sharp, urgent voice. Jaden hit the brakes. His tires skidded slightly, kicking up bits of gravel. His heart pounded in his chest as he looked toward the nearly empty parking lot just ahead. At first, nothing seemed out of place. Rows of parked cars sat in the dim glow of overhead lights, silent and still. But then, movement. Two figures stood near a car, their bodies tense in the flickering light. A woman with blonde hair, her posture stiff, her hands raised in what looked like frustration. A man stood in front of her, rigid, his fists clenched at his sides. Even from a distance, Jaden could feel it. Something wasn't right. The woman shook her head, backing away slightly. The man stepped forward. Their voices were muffled, but the energy between them crackled with something dangerous. Then, without warning, the man grabbed her arm. Not gently, not pleading, not like someone begging a loved one to stay. It was forceful. The woman jerked back, twisting against his grip. Her voice rose. "Let go of me." Jaden's fingers tightened around his handlebars. Every instinct told him to look away, to keep riding, to pretend he hadn't seen anything. But his feet felt glued to the pavement. His breath caught in his throat as he watched, helpless, from the shadows of a nearby tree. The man glanced around. His head snapped left, then right, scanning the area as if searching for witnesses. For a moment, Jaden thought their eyes met, and a jolt of fear shot through him. But before he could move, the man yanked the woman toward the car. She struggled, planting her feet, shoving against him. Her voice cracked with desperation, but the parking lot swallowed her words. Jaden wanted to yell, to do something, anything, but he was just a kid. The man forced the car door open. The woman thrashed, her hands clawing at the frame, her feet kicking wildly against the ground. One last shove, and she disappeared inside. The door slammed shut. The man stood there for a second, breathing hard. Then he darted to the driver's seat, his movements quick and deliberate. The car's engine roared to life, headlights flashing against the asphalt. Jaden's breath came in short, shallow bursts. His heart pounded so loudly he was sure the man could hear it. Then, with a screech of tires, the blue sedan sped off into the night. And just like that, they were gone. Jaden sat frozen, his grip on the handlebars unyielding. His stomach churned, his mind raced. What had he just witnessed? A misunderstanding? A couple arguing? Or something much, much worse? The uneasy feeling settled deep in his chest, refusing to leave. Something about that moment felt final, like a door had just been slammed shut on someone's fate. And the worst part? Jaden had done nothing to stop it. The memory of that night clung to Jaden like a shadow. No matter how many times he told himself it wasn't his business, that he had just misread the situation, the unease never left him. For weeks, he tried to shake it off. Maybe it was just an argument. Maybe the woman had gotten out of that car minutes later, upset but unharmed. Maybe he was overthinking everything. Then the news broke. Alyssa Cole, dead. Her body had been found in a wooded area outside town. The police had arrested her husband, Darius Cole, for her murder. Jaden sat frozen at the kitchen table, staring at the newspaper his mom had left there. His cereal had gone soggy, untouched. His fingers tightened around the paper's edges as his eyes locked onto the front page headline. Husband charged in wife's murder. Darius Cole, a killer? Beneath the bold, damning words was a photo of Alyssa, a smiling woman with deep brown eyes and long dark hair cascading over her shoulders. Jaden's breath caught. His pulse pounded in his ears. Dark hair, not blonde. His mind raced back to that night. The woman he had seen struggling in the parking lot. The one who had fought against the man who had been shoved into the blue sedan. She had blonde hair. His stomach twisted. If Alyssa had dark hair, then who was the woman in the car? His hands trembled as he scrolled through the news article on his tablet, scanning every detail, searching for anything about a second woman. Nothing. The report painted a simple, airtight story. Alyssa had been killed. Darius was the only suspect. The police had their evidence, and the case was already being called open and shut. But Jaden knew better. There was someone else, someone no one was talking about. The man in the parking lot, the one who had looked over his shoulder, scanning the area, the one who had checked to see if anyone was watching. Jaden had seen him, and now an innocent man was about to go to prison for the rest of his life. His heart pounded harder. He had convinced himself that what he saw that night didn't matter. But he was wrong. It mattered more than anything. If he stayed silent, the truth would never come out, and a murderer would walk free. Jaden sat stiffly in Judge Harper's chambers, his hands balled into fists in his lap. The room felt far too big, its walls lined with heavy bookshelves, its air thick with something heavier than silence. Doubt. And across from him sat Prosecutor Andrew Lawson, staring him down like he was nothing more than a distraction. "You're telling me," Lawson said, voice dripping with skepticism, "that you, a 12-year-old, somehow know more about this case than the police, the forensics team, and an entire jury of adults?" Jaden opened his mouth, but Lawson waved a dismissive hand. "This is a courtroom, kid, not a playground," he continued. "You don't get to just burst in here and yell, 'Stop the trial,' like this is some detective movie. The real world doesn't work that way." Jaden's stomach twisted, but he held his ground. "I know what I saw," he said, voice steady. "And it wasn't Alyssa Cole in that car." Lawson sighed, rubbing his temples. "This is absurd," he muttered, turning toward Judge Harper. "Your Honor, this is a waste of time. His testimony isn't evidence. It's a story. That's all it is." A story. That's all they thought this was? Jaden turned to Rivera, the defense attorney. Unlike Lawson, Rivera wasn't brushing him off. He wasn't speaking, wasn't even blinking, just watching, studying. "If what you're saying is true," Rivera finally said, voice measured, "then we have a serious problem. But a contradiction in hair color isn't enough. You understand that, right?" Jaden swallowed. "I get it." Before Rivera could respond, the door burst open. Monica Carter, his mother. She rushed inside, her face pale with fear, her breath coming in short gasps. "Jaden," she said, grabbing his shoulders, "what are you doing?" Mom, I had to say something, Jaden insisted. They're sending the wrong man to prison. Monica turned to the judge, to the lawyers, her voice frantic. He's just a kid. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's scared. He's confused. I'm not confused, Jaden shouted. I saw her, Mom. The woman in that car. She wasn't Alyssa Cole. Monica's grip on him tightened. Jaden, she whispered, her voice breaking, you don't understand what you're getting yourself into. The room went still. Rivera sighed. He turned to Judge Harper. Your Honor, he said, I'd like time to investigate this claim, if there's even a chance this boy is telling the truth. Absolutely not, Lawson cut in. We're not derailing an entire case because a kid thinks he saw something months ago. This trial is built on solid evidence. Then what's the harm in verifying it? Rivera countered. The harm is that we're wasting time and resources chasing after a child's imagination, Lawson snapped. Monica turned to Rivera now, desperation in her eyes. Please, she pleaded. Just tell him to stop. He's my son. I don't want him caught up in something dangerous. Rivera hesitated. Jaden's heart pounded. This was it. The moment someone had to believe him. Finally, Rivera exhaled. I won't dismiss this until I look into it further, he said. But Jaden, words alone won't save a man's life. Bring me proof. Judge Harper glanced at the bailiff. Escort him and his mother out, she instructed. We'll reconvene tomorrow. Jaden felt his mother's grip tighten around his wrists as she pulled him toward the door. And in that moment, the weight of it all crashed onto his shoulders. No one believed him. Not yet, but they would. That night, something felt off. Not in the way a bad dream lingers when you wake up, or the way a storm makes the walls creak. This was different. It was real. Jaden lay in bed, the weight of the courtroom pressing down on him. No one had believed him. Not Lawson. Not his mom. Not even Rivera. Not really. They thought he was just a kid who had seen something and twisted it into a story. But they were wrong. And someone out there knew it. A noise. Soft. Barely there. Jaden tensed. It came from outside. Slowly, he pushed back his covers and sat up, every nerve in his body on edge. He moved to the window, careful to stay behind the curtain. The street was quiet. Their house sat on the corner, the streetlight flickering every few seconds, casting long, jittery shadows along the pavement. Everything looked normal. Then, movement. Beyond the hedge at the edge of their yard, a figure stood just beyond the glow of the street lamp. Too far to see clearly, but close enough to send a cold chill down Jaden's spine. His breath caught. Was it just someone passing through? A neighbor walking their dog? Or was it something else? Someone watching? His fingers curled around the curtain. He should wake his mom. He should. His phone buzzed. The sound made him jump. His heart pounded as he reached for it, flipping it over in his hands. But it wasn't his phone. It was his mom's. A text message. A single line glowing on the screen. Tell your son to keep his mouth shut, or he'll regret it. Jaden's stomach dropped. His skin turned cold. This wasn't paranoia. It wasn't just some bad dream. Someone was watching. Someone was warning. And now it wasn't just about Darius Cole anymore. It was about him. The next morning, Jaden couldn't shake the feeling that he was running out of time. The text message had been a warning. But more than that, it was proof. Proof that someone knew what he had seen. Proof that someone was scared he might figure out more. And that only made him more determined. His mother had barely slept. He could tell by the way she moved around the house, jumpy, distracted, checking the locks twice. She hadn't said much, only one sentence when he came down for breakfast. You're staying home today. No arguments. Jaden had nodded. And then he waited. Waited for the moment she grabbed her purse, said she needed to run errands, and told him to stay inside. The second she was gone, he grabbed his bike. There was only one place he needed to go. The park. Evergreen Park looked different in the daylight. Less eerie. Less like the place where something terrible had happened. The morning sun streamed through the trees, casting patches of gold across the pavement. Joggers ran past, kids played on the swings, and dog walkers strolled along the paths. To everyone else, it was just another normal day. But Jaden knew better. He rode his bike down the familiar path, slowing as he approached the parking lot. His pulse picked up. It was right there, that spot near the hedge. The place where he had stood, frozen in fear, watching a woman get shoved into a car. Jaden swallowed and took a deep breath. It had been months. Whatever clues were here were probably long gone. but something inside him said to look anyway. He parked his bike and walked to the edge of the lot, scanning the ground. The dirt was packed and dry, covered in fallen leaves. He crouched, running his fingers through the soil. Nothing. He exhaled, frustrated. Maybe he was chasing ghosts. Maybe there was nothing left to find. Then, something cold, metallic. His fingers curled around it, pulling it free from the dirt. A keychain. A small sunflower, scratched and worn, its yellow petals faded with time. Jaden's breath hitched. This wasn't just any keychain. He had seen it before. Somewhere. He pulled out his phone, his hands shaking as he searched online for Alyssa Cole. He scrolled through old news articles, past headlines and grainy crime scene photos, until he found it. A picture. Alyssa Cole, smiling, holding a coffee cup, and dangling from her purse strap, a sunflower keychain. Jaden's grip tightened around the small object in his hand. This was hers. She had been here. He looked around, his heart pounding. But wait, if Alyssa had been here that night, if she had been the one in the car, then why did the woman he saw have blonde hair? His fingers flew over his phone screen, searching. And then he found it. Another name, another woman. Rachel Daniels, Alyssa's best friend. Blonde hair. Jaden's stomach dropped. Had he been wrong this whole time? Had he watched Rachel get taken instead? If so, where was she now? And was she even still alive? Jaden gripped the handlebars, his heart still pounding from what he had just found. The sunflower keychain. It wasn't just a coincidence. It wasn't just some random object buried in the dirt. It belonged to Alyssa. And if that was true, if she had been at the park the night she disappeared, then who was the woman Jaden had seen? Rachel Daniels. The thought made his stomach twist. Had he been wrong this whole time? Had he watched Rachel get taken instead? And if so, where was she now? He needed to get home, needed to figure this out, needed to. The deep growl of an engine rumbled behind him. Jaden frowned, glancing back. A black SUV, not speeding, not swerving, just following. Too close, he swallowed, shifting gears and pedaling faster. Maybe it was nothing, maybe just some car heading in the same direction. Then, the engine roared, tires screeched, and the SUV lurched forward. Jaden's pulse spiked. They were coming for him. He yanked the handlebars, swerving onto the sidewalk. The SUV braked hard, but didn't stop. Jaden pumped his legs, his breath coming in gasps. The sidewalk was too narrow, too crowded. If he stayed on it, they'd catch him at the next turn. His eyes darted ahead. An alley. If he could make it, if he could cut behind the grocery store, the SUV veered left, trying to block him. Jaden's stomach flipped. He had seconds. He gritted his teeth, aimed for the gap between two parked cars, and launched himself onto the street. The tires skidded. His bike wobbled. He almost lost control. Almost. The SUV's horn blared, but it was stuck in traffic. Jaden didn't stop, didn't look back, didn't breathe until he turned the corner, his hands shaking on the handlebars. Someone had just tried to run him down. This wasn't just about Alyssa anymore. This was bigger. Someone wanted him gone. Because he was too close. Jaden knew he was being watched. The near miss with the black SUV had confirmed it. Someone wanted him dead, but why? He had no proof, no names, just a sinking feeling that he was getting too close to something dangerous. So he did what he did best. He started digging. Kyle Benson. The name popped up in an old business article about real estate investments. Wealthy, powerful, the kind of man whose face was always plastered on glossy magazines, flashing a perfect smile for the cameras. But it wasn't the money that made Jaden's skin crawl. It was the connection. Alyssa Cole had worked as an accountant for one of Kyle's companies. Rachel Daniels had too. And then, they both disappeared. Jaden's fingers hovered over his phone screen, his stomach twisting. This wasn't just about a bad business deal. This was something bigger, something worth killing for. The more Jaden searched, the worse it got. Years of financial records, some public, some buried deep in old reports, showed millions of dollars unaccounted for. Fraud, money laundering. Kyle Benson wasn't just a businessman, he was a criminal. And Alyssa, she must have figured it out. Rachel too. That's why she had been at the park that night. She had confronted Kyle, and he had made sure she never spoke again. Jaden's heart pounded. Darius hadn't killed Alyssa. Kyle had set him up. The whole trial was a distraction, an easy scapegoat to keep the cops from looking too closely at the real crime. And now, Jaden was the only one who knew the truth. A chill ran down his spine. Kyle Benson had already killed once What would he do to stop Jaden from talking? The answer came a moment later. A noise outside. Footsteps on the gravel. Jaden barely had time to react before the front door burst open. And then, everything went black. Jaden drifted between consciousness and darkness, his body heavy, his mind sluggish. The cold seeped into his skin. Concrete. Hard. Unforgiving. The air smelled of rust and gasoline, thick and suffocating. His fingers twitched, but something dug into his wrists, ropes, rough and tight. He wasn't at home. He wasn't safe. Panic surged through his chest as his vision swam back into focus. A warehouse. Dim light flickered from a single hanging bulb, casting long, twisted shadows across metal shelves and abandoned crates. It felt empty, except for the presence he could feel nearby. Watching. Waiting. Then came the voice, smooth, controlled, almost amused. "You should have stopped digging, kid." Jaden's breath caught. Kyle Benson stepped into the light, neatly pressed suit, polished shoes. His posture exuded power, but there was something behind his eyes. Cold, calculating, merciless. A man used to getting exactly what he wanted. Jaden clenched his fists. "You killed Alyssa," he said, his voice hoarse. "And you framed Darius." Kyle tilted his head slightly as if he were entertained by the accusation. "Smart boy," he mused. "Smarter than I expected. But you see, that's the problem with smart people. They think they can outplay me." He took a slow step forward. Alyssa did. Another step. Rachel did. His voice dropped lower, his presence suffocating. "And now, you did." Jaden's pulse hammered in his ears. Kyle let out a quiet sigh, rubbing his temples as if this were nothing more than a business inconvenience. "You know, I really did try to be reasonable," he said. "I gave you a warning. I let you walk away. But you just wouldn't let it go." His voice darkened. "And now I have to clean up your mess." Jaden swallowed hard. He knew what that meant. Kyle turned away, rolling up his sleeves. His movements were methodical, unhurried, the way a man would prepare for a task he had done 100 times before. Jaden yanked at the ropes, his wrists burning, his mind raced. Think, think, think. There had to be a way out. Then, a noise, faint, distant. His breath hitched. Sirens. Kyle froze. Jaden's chest tightened. Someone had called for help, but it wasn't him. Rachel. She had survived. She had escaped, and she had told the truth. Kyle turned back, his eyes narrowing into slits. "What did you do?" he snapped. Jaden didn't answer. The sirens grew louder. Kyle's jaw clenched. His fingers curled into fists. For the first time, he looked truly angry. Outside, red and blue lights flashed through the warehouse windows. Kyle took a step toward Jaden, and for a split second, Jaden thought he was going to finish it anyway. Then, a loud crash. The warehouse door slammed open, and everything exploded into chaos. The warehouse erupted into chaos. A deafening crash echoed through the space as the front door slammed open, sending dust and debris scattering across the floor. Flashlights cut through the darkness. Shadows stretched and twisted under the flashing red and blue lights outside. "Freeze! Hands where we can see them!" The command was sharp, unyielding. Kyle Benson spun around, his face twisting from shock to rage. For a split second he hesitated. Then, his hand darted inside his jacket. Jaden's breath caught. He was reaching for a gun. "Don't do it, Benson." A single heartbeat of silence. Then, gunfire. The warehouse exploded with sound. Bullets ripped through crates and metal beams, sending splinters flying. Jaden flinched, his body instinctively curling in on itself. His ears rang, his chest heaved. He squeezed his eyes shut. Too loud, too much, more shouting, more footsteps pounding against concrete. Then, a crash, a grunt, a body hitting the ground. Jaden forced himself to look. Kyle Benson lay sprawled across the floor, his gun skidding away. 2 officers pounced, pinning him down, twisting his arms behind his back. "It's over, Benson." Kyle struggled, his face contorted with fury. "You don't know what you're doing," he spat. "You think this is over? You think this—" A set of handcuffs snapped shut. Click, click, and just like that, it was done. Jaden's entire body went numb. His wrist still burned from the rope. His chest ached from holding his breath. His mind reeled from everything that had just happened. A shadow moved in his peripheral vision. A voice, soft, trembling. "Jaden?" He turned his head. Rachel. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt, but she was alive. She was here. Jaden exhaled, a deep, shaky breath he hadn't realized he was holding. The nightmare was finally over. The courtroom was silent. Not the tense, suffocating silence of before, but the kind that held its breath in anticipation. Jaden sat beside his mother, his fingers gripping the chair's edge. Across the room, Darius Cole stood at the defendant's table, set, his shoulders squared but his hands trembling. He had spent months behind bars for a crime he didn't commit, and now... The judge cleared her throat. In light of new evidence and the arrest of Kyle Benson, this court finds the defendant not guilty. A murmur rippled through the crowd. Darius staggered back slightly, his breath coming out in a shaky exhale. Then he turned toward Jaden, his eyes filled with something beyond gratitude. Relief. Freedom. A second chance. Jaden barely had time to react before he felt a strong hand on his shoulder. He looked up. Detective Ramirez. She knelt slightly, meeting his gaze with something between admiration and disbelief. "You did good, kid," she murmured. "Better than most of us ever could." Jaden swallowed the lump in his throat. He didn't feel like a hero. Not really. He had just done what was right. The world had moved on. News channels ran their final reports on the case. Darius was reunited with his family. Kyle Benson, once untouchable, was now just another criminal in a jumpsuit. And Jaden? He went back to being a kid. Sort of. At school, people whispered his name in the hallways. Some called him brave. Others just stared. His mom was still paranoid, double-checking every lock before bed. And Rachel, still shaken but healing, was starting to put her life back together. For the first time in a long time, things felt normal. Until the email arrived. Jaden almost ignored it. Just another spam message. But the subject line made his blood run cold. "You think it's over? It's not." His heart hammered against his ribs. His hands trembled as he clicked it open. One sentence. "You found one monster, but there are more. No name, no sender, just a blank screen." And an attachment, a photo, taken from outside his house. That same feeling, the icy, suffocating dread, crept back into his chest. This wasn't over. Not even close. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, don't forget to hit that like button. And if you think more people need to hear this, share it with your friends and family. We pour our hearts into bringing you these gripping stories, and your support means everything. So, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next story. Top of form, bottom of form. A 10-year-old black boy suddenly stood up in the middle of a courtroom and shouted 2 words. The room fell into a stunned silence. His small fists clenched, his eyes burning with determination. Across the bench, the elderly judge went pale, his hand trembling as the gavel slipped from his grasp and hit the wooden desk with a sharp crack. What did this boy just say? And why would a child's words strike fear into the hearts of the most powerful people in the room? If you believe that truth should never stay buried, and that justice must always prevail, hit like to support this story. And if you don't want to miss more gripping, real-life inspired stories like this, make sure to subscribe right now. Someone out there is desperately trying to silence the truth, but you will be the one to uncover it. Now, let's dive into the mystery behind this boy's shocking revelation. The air inside the courtroom was thick, suffocating with tension. It wasn't just another trial. It was a case that had drawn public attention, a case that carried weight. The judge, an older man with sharp eyes and a reputation for being merciless, sat high above, gripping his gavel. His expression was unreadable, his voice steady as he prepared to deliver the final verdict. Across the room, the defendant, a middle-aged man with weary eyes, stood still, his fingers twitching at his sides. He had been here before, but this time was different. This time, it was the end. The jury had already cast their judgment. The sentence was moments away. A hush fell over the room. Then, a voice shattered the silence. "He's innocent." The words cut through the stillness like a blade, sharp and unyielding. Gasps erupted across the courtroom. Heads turned, searching for the source. And there he was. A 10-year-old black boy stood at the back of the room, barely visible among the towering adults. His small fists clenched, his dark eyes burning with defiance. His voice, though young, carried with it a force that made even the most powerful men pause. The judge stiffened. For a brief, agonizing moment, he didn't move. His breath hitched, so imperceptible that only those watching him closely would have noticed. Then his knuckles turned white around the gavel. His face, once composed, drained of color. The gavel slipped from his grasp and struck the wooden bench with a sharp, echoing crack. The room erupted into chaos. Who is that boy? What did he just say? How does he know? The murmurs turned into frantic whispers, a ripple of confusion spreading like wildfire. But the bailiff, trained to react swiftly, moved first. His heavy boots pounded against the floor as he strode toward the boy, his posture tense, his hand instinctively reaching out. Noah! A desperate cry sliced through the noise. Lisa Thompson, Noah's mother, surged forward. She reached him just as the officer did, her arms shielding her son. Don't touch him! Lisa snapped, her voice sharp, filled with something primal, fear, protectiveness, and something deeper. The knowledge that this moment had changed everything. But Noah didn't shrink back. He didn't cower behind his mother's embrace. His eyes remained locked on the judge. And for that fleeting moment, it was just the two of them. The boy and the judge. Noah saw it, the fear. Not just shock, not just surprise, but something deeper. A recognition. A silent admission that the boy's words had struck a nerve. The courtroom buzzed with questions, but Noah barely heard them. His pulse thundered in his ears, yet he stood firm, because deep down, he knew. He had just exposed something no one was supposed to know. 2 weeks earlier, life had been simple, until the nightmare began. The world had never been fair to Noah Thompson. At just 10 years old, he had already learned a hard truth. Justice and fairness weren't the same thing. He lived with his mother, Lisa, in a tiny apartment on the south side of the city. She was a woman of quiet resilience, her hands calloused from double shifts, her eyes heavy with exhaustion but never without love. She worked 2 jobs, doing everything she could to keep food on the table. Noah rarely saw her sit down. She was always moving, always fighting, because she had no choice. Noah had always been different. Sharp, observant, stubborn. He believed in rules, but only when they were fair. He was the kind of kid who spoke up in class when a teacher ignored a student who needed help. The kind who stepped between a bully and his target, even when it meant getting hit himself. He couldn't stand injustice. And injustice, it seemed to follow him everywhere. At school, his hand shot up first, but his voice was often the last to be acknowledged. In stores, he could feel the weight of watchful eyes, expecting him to slip something into his pocket. Once, at a corner store near his apartment, Noah had saved 2 whole weeks of spare change for a candy bar. The moment he picked it up, the clerk, a gray-haired man with narrowed eyes, stiffened behind the counter. You gonna pay for that, kid? Noah's fingers clenched around the coins in his pocket. His stomach twisted. Of course, sir, he said evenly, forcing himself to meet the man's gaze. The clerk took his time counting the change, eyes never leaving Noah's face, as if daring him to prove he wasn't a thief. That was the world Noah lived in, one where people assumed the worst of him before he even had a chance to prove them wrong. Lisa had always warned him, you have to be twice as good, Noah, twice as careful. But why? Why did some people get the benefit of the doubt, while others, like him, had to fight for every ounce of respect? Yet, despite everything, Noah still believed in justice. His father had taught him that. James Thompson. For the first 5 years of his life, Noah had clung to his father's every word. James was a storyteller, filling their small apartment with tales of heroes who fought for what was right. He spoke about courage, about truth, about standing tall, even when the world tried to knock you down. But 5 years ago, James Thompson vanished. People whispered about it. They said he abandoned them. Left in the middle of the night, no warning, no goodbye. Lisa never talked about it. And when people asked, she would only say, he's gone. But Noah never believed it. A man who taught his son about truth wouldn't lie. A man who taught his son about justice wouldn't just run away. Would he? Noah wanted to believe there was a reason. That one day his father would come back and everything would make sense. But years passed, and hope was a funny thing. It didn't shatter all at once. It crumbled piece by piece until there was almost nothing left. And just when Noah was about to let go, a letter arrived. And everything changed. It was late in the afternoon when the knock came. Lisa barely noticed it at first, just another interruption in a long, exhausting day. She had just gotten home from work, her uniform still creased from hours on her feet, her body aching for rest. Noah was sitting at the kitchen table, flipping through one of his old comic books, the ones with heroes who always seemed to win in the end. Then came another knock, louder this time. More urgent. Lisa's brow furrowed. Something about it felt off. She wiped her hands on her apron, glanced at Noah, then made her way to the door. The moment she opened it, her breath caught. A man stood on the porch, tall, well-dressed, a black suit pressed so perfectly it looked untouched by the dust of the city. His face was unreadable, too still, too practiced, and in his gloved hand he held something small, a sealed envelope. Lisa's fingers twitched at her sides. "Lisa Thompson?" His voice was smooth, polite even, but something about it sent a shiver down her spine. She swallowed. "Who are you?" The man didn't answer. Instead, he extended the envelope toward her. "You've been summoned." Lisa didn't take it right away. Her hands stayed clenched at her sides, as if touching it would make this moment real. Then Noah appeared beside her, his small frame pressing close to her side. He was looking up at the man, curiosity flickering in his dark eyes. Lisa finally took the envelope. It was heavier than it should have been, the paper thick and expensive beneath her fingertips. She slid her thumb beneath the seal, pulled out the letter inside, and the color drained from her face. Noah saw it happen, the way her shoulders stiffened, the way her fingers gripped the letter so tightly the edges curled. "Mom?" His voice was cautious, uncertain. Lisa didn't answer. Her lips parted, but no words came. Noah frowned and leaned forward, trying to read over her shoulder. But before he could make out the words, the sound of tires screeching against pavement shattered the air. Blue and red lights flashed outside the apartment window. A second later, there was another knock, this time like a hammer against the wood. "Police! Open up!" Lisa spun, still clutching the letter. Her heart pounded. Noah's eyes widened. "What's happening?" She didn't have an answer. The door swung open before she could even move. Two uniformed officers stepped inside. The lead officer, a man with steely eyes and a badge gleaming under the dim hallway light, looked straight at her. "Lisa Thompson?" Lisa's grip tightened on the letter. "Yes," she said, voice tight. "We need to take your son. Now." Noah's heart nearly stopped. Lisa stepped in front of him instinctively. Her protective stance was immediate, fierce. "What? Why?" The officer didn't flinch. His voice was cold. "He's been named as a witness in an ongoing case." Lisa shook her head. "A witness to what?" The officer's jaw tightened. "I need you to step aside, ma'am." Lisa didn't move. Noah felt her fingers reach back and curl around his arm, holding him close like she was afraid they would tear him away. The man in the suit still stood at the door, watching, waiting. Noah's stomach twisted. Something wasn't right. Something was very, very wrong. And then, in a voice so quiet he barely heard himself say it, Noah whispered, "Where's my dad?" For the first time, the officer hesitated, just for a second. And that was enough. Because in that second, Noah realized this wasn't about him. This was about his father. And whatever his dad had been running from 5 years ago, it had finally caught up with them. The room felt smaller, like the walls were pressing in. Lisa still stood in front of Noah, her body tense, shielding him from the officers. But Noah could see her hands trembling at her sides. The letter was still clutched in her grip, now slightly crumpled from how hard she was holding it. The lead officer shifted uncomfortably, but his voice remained cold, clipped. "Ma'am, I need you to step aside." Lisa's jaw tightened. "Not until you tell me what this is about." For the first time, the officer hesitated. A flicker of something passed across his face. Was it doubt? Guilt? Whatever it was gone in an instant. "Your husband," he said finally, "James Thompson." Noah felt his stomach drop. Lisa flinched as if she had been slapped. "My husband is dead." Her voice was low, controlled, but there was something breaking beneath it. The officer exhaled sharply. "No, ma'am, he's not." The silence that followed was deafening. Noah felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. His father was alive? He wanted to believe it, had spent years hoping for it, but why was the first time he was hearing this from a police officer standing in his doorway? Lisa shook her head. "That's not possible." The officer's voice remained steady. "James didn't leave you because he wanted to, Mrs. Thompson. He was running." Lisa's breath hitched. "Running from what?" The officer glanced toward the open doorway, toward the man in the suit who still stood there, silent, unreadable. Then he turned back to her. The black veil. Lisa stiffened. Her lips parted slightly, as if the name alone had sucked the air from her lungs. Noah had never heard of it before, but the way his mother's face changed, The way her fingers dug into the fabric of her shirt, as if gripping onto something unseen, told him everything he needed to know. This wasn't just bad, this was worse. Much worse. What is that? Noah's voice was small, but it cut through the heavy air. The officer didn't look at him. His gaze stayed locked on Lisa. An organization, he said. A dangerous one. They operate in the shadows. They control judges, politicians, even the police. Something twisted in Noah's chest. You mean like, bad guys? The officer exhaled, but it wasn't amusement, it was exhaustion. Not just bad guys, kid, the worst kind. The kind that make the rules, so no one ever stops them. Noah's head was spinning. Why would his father have anything to do with people like that? James worked for them once, the officer continued. But when he found out the truth, what they were really doing, he ran. He stole something from them. He paused, then added, something that could bring them down. Lisa's grip on Noah's shoulder tightened. Her breathing had changed now, faster, shallower. What did he take? She asked, though Noah wasn't sure she really wanted the answer. The officer hesitated. Then finally, the ledger. Lisa's breath hitched again. This time she had to reach for the wall to steady herself. No, she whispered. The officer nodded grimly. It's a list. Names, records, proof of every corrupt official under their control. If it ever got out, it would destroy them. Noah swallowed hard. And my dad, he stole it? Yes, a chill ran down his spine. Then why are you here? Lisa's voice was sharper now, laced with something between rage and fear. James isn't here. You should be looking for him, not... The officer cut her off. We're not the only ones looking, Mrs. Thompson. The room fell into silence. And in that silence, Noah understood. This wasn't about his father anymore. It was about them. About him. And whatever his father had done 5 years ago, it was catching up to them now. The air inside the apartment had changed. Lisa could feel it. The shift, the sudden wrongness in the air. She had sensed it even before the officer spoke those final words. We're not the only ones looking, Mrs. Thompson. Before she noticed the way his fingers twitched near his holster. Before she saw the man in the black suit still watching from the doorway, silent and unmoving, like a shadow waiting for its moment to strike. Then the lights went out. Not a flicker, not a power surge, total darkness. Lisa's breath caught, not from surprise, but from the terrible certainty that this wasn't an accident. And then the window shattered. Glass sprayed across the floor as the front door exploded inward. Lisa barely had time to react before masked figures poured into the apartment, dressed in black, moving with deadly precision. Noah barely saw them before Lisa grabbed him, yanking him back, shielding him with her body. Run, she gasped. But there was nowhere to run. The first masked figure lunged. Lisa twisted, shoving Noah behind her. Her mother's instinct overpowered her fear. Then came the second figure. And the third. Noah barely had time to scream before a gloved hand clamped over his mouth. The world tilted. His feet left the floor as someone lifted him, dragging him toward the doorway. He kicked, thrashed, fought with everything he had. Noah! Lisa's voice was raw with terror. She clawed at the man holding her back, but there were too many of them. Noah's vision blurred. His lungs burned from the lack of air. And then, a gunshot. The sound was deafening in the small apartment. The grip around Noah loosened. The masked man holding him stumbled back, a sharp cry escaping his lips. He fell, and Noah collapsed to the ground, gasping for breath. Another gunshot. Then, a voice, sharp, commanding. Female. Get down! Noah barely had time to process what was happening before a new figure stepped out of the shadows. She moved fast, too fast. A woman, dressed in dark tactical gear, her short hair slicked back, her gun raised with deadly precision. In a blur, she fired again, striking another attacker in the leg. The masked figure collapsed with a howl. The remaining intruders hesitated. For the first time, they weren't the ones in control. The woman turned toward Lisa, her expression tight. We have to go, now. Lisa didn't question it. She grabbed Noah's arm, pulling him to his feet. Who are you? She panted. The woman's eyes flickered toward the window. Movement. More coming. No time, she said. Then, lowering her voice, she added something that sent a shiver down Lisa's spine. If we don't leave now, your son won't live to see morning. Lisa didn't hesitate. With one last glance at their shattered home, the life they had just lost, she tightened her grip on Noah's hand, and they ran. Noah didn't know why these people wanted him, but he knew one thing. This wasn't just about his father anymore. This was about him. The night was cold. The city lights blurred into streaks of gold and red as the car sped down the highway, disappearing into the darkness. Noah sat in the back seat, his heart still hammering in his chest. The weight of everything that had happened in the last few hours sat heavy on his shoulders. His home, gone. His life, shattered. His mother, silent, gripping the door handle so tightly her knuckles had turned white. And the woman driving, the one who had saved them. She hadn't spoken much since they escaped, only driving, scanning the road, gripping the wheel like she was waiting for something or someone to appear in the rearview mirror. Finally, Lisa broke the silence. "Who are you?" Her voice was hoarse, but there was an edge to it, one that said she wasn't done fighting yet. The woman glanced at her. Evelyn Carter. Her voice was steady, controlled, too controlled, like someone used to handling chaos. Lisa's eyes narrowed. "And why should I trust you?" Evelyn didn't answer right away. Instead, she sighed, adjusted her grip on the wheel, and then she spoke. "Because if I wanted you dead, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Noah felt Lisa tense beside him. Evelyn sighed again, softer this time. "Look, I get it. You don't know me. You don't trust me. But right now, I'm the only reason you're both still breathing. And if you want to keep it that way, you need to listen carefully." Lisa hesitated. Then, finally, she nodded. Evelyn took a breath and glanced at Noah through the rearview mirror. "Your father isn't the man you thought he was." Noah stiffened. 5 years ago, James Thompson discovered something. Something that could destroy an entire network of corruption. A network that controls judges, politicians, law enforcement, people who are supposed to uphold justice but are nothing more than pawns in a much bigger game. Lisa's breath caught. "You mean?" Evelyn's voice hardened. "I mean the Black Veil." Silence. Even the hum of the car's engine felt distant now. They operate in the shadows, pulling strings no one even realizes exist. They don't just bend the law, Lisa. They are the law. Nothing happens without their approval. Noah swallowed hard. "And my dad? He worked for them?" Evelyn's grip on the wheel tightened. At first, but he didn't know what they really were. Not until it was too late. Lisa's face was unreadable. "What did he do?" Evelyn hesitated. "Then, finally, he stole something from them." Lisa inhaled sharply. "The ledger," Noah whispered. Evelyn nodded. "It's not just a list, Noah. It's everything. Names, records, transactions, every dirty secret they've ever buried. If it gets out, the Black Veil falls." Noah's mind raced. "So where is it now?" Evelyn's jaw tightened. "That's the problem." Lisa leaned forward. "What do you mean?" Evelyn exhaled. "James doesn't have it anymore. He hid it. Somewhere no one can touch it. And now," her eyes flickered toward Noah again. "They think you're the key to finding it." Noah's breath hitched. Lisa's grip on his arm tightened. Outside, the night stretched on. The road ahead was empty. But Noah knew. They were no longer running from just masked assassins. They were running from the people who controlled the world. The car sped through the night, headlights cutting through the darkness. The hum of the engine was the only sound for a long time. Noah sat in the back seat, his mind racing. His father had stolen something so powerful it could destroy the people who controlled the world. And now those people were hunting him. "But why me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Evelyn exhaled, gripping the wheel tighter. She knew this question was coming. "Because, Noah," she said, glancing at him in the rearview mirror, "your father didn't just hide the ledger. He hid it. Inside you." Noah's breath caught. "What?" Lisa turned sharply toward Evelyn, eyes flashing with disbelief. "That's impossible." Evelyn shook her head. "No, it's not. Your husband was brilliant, Lisa. He knew the Black Veil would stop at nothing to get it back. He couldn't just hide it in a safe or a bank. He needed a place no one would ever suspect. Somewhere no one could touch." She looked at Noah again, her gaze unreadable. "So he put it inside his son." Noah's hands clenched into fists. "I don't understand," he said. His heart pounded as memories of his father flickered through his mind. Bedtime stories, lullabies, secret handshakes, the way James always seemed to repeat certain phrases, as if making sure Noah would never forget them. Lisa shook her head. "That doesn't make sense. Noah was just a little boy." "Exactly," Evelyn said. "No one would ever think to look there." She sighed, rubbing a hand over her face. "James didn't just steal a list of names. He stole their entire operation. Their transactions, their offshore accounts, the proof that could take them all down. He encoded it, broke it into pieces. Then somehow, he embedded it into Noah's subconscious memory. Noah's stomach twisted. But I don't remember anything. Evelyn nodded. That's the point. It's locked away, buried deep in your mind. Maybe in a song your dad used to sing to you, a bedtime story. A set of numbers disguised as a game. She paused. And the Black Veil knows it. The words hung heavy in the air. Lisa's face paled. So they don't want to kill him. Evelyn's jaw tightened. Not yet. Noah shuddered. They weren't hunting him to kill him. They were hunting him to use him, to crack open the secrets inside his own head. And when they had what they wanted, what would happen to him then? The realization settled into his bones. They couldn't run forever. If he was the key, then sooner or later, he would have to unlock the truth. The safe house was eerily quiet, too quiet. Noah sat on the worn-out couch, his fingers gripping the fabric, his mind still reeling from what Evelyn had told him. He was the key. The ledger was inside him, and the Black Veil would do anything to get it. Lisa paced near the window, her arms wrapped tightly around herself, her body tense. She hadn't stopped moving since they arrived. She kept glancing outside as if expecting danger to appear at any moment. Evelyn stood near the door, her gun resting against her hip, her posture rigid. Then a knock. Noah's breath caught. Lisa froze. Evelyn's eyes narrowed. In an instant she raised her weapon, signaling for them to stay back. Another knock, this time louder, more forceful. Evelyn moved cautiously, peeking through the small gap in the blinds. Then, after a long moment, she exhaled and lowered her gun. It's okay. It's him. Lisa's shoulders sagged in relief. The door opened, and a tall man in a police uniform stepped inside. Officer Daniels. Noah had met him once before. He had been one of the officers assigned to protect them after the attack on their home. He had always spoken to Noah kindly, his deep voice steady, his presence reassuring. You're safe now, Daniels said, stepping forward. Lisa let out a shaky breath. Thank God. Daniels' face was serious. We need to move. The safe house is compromised. Evelyn stiffened. How do you know? Daniels met her gaze, his jaw tight. We intercepted a transmission. The Black Veil is closing in. If we don't leave now, we won't get another chance. Evelyn hesitated, then nodded. Fine, let's go. She turned to Noah and Lisa. Stay close to me. Noah stood up, his legs slightly unsteady. Lisa reached for his hand, gripping it tightly. They didn't question Daniels. They should have. The moment they stepped outside, everything fell apart. Before Noah could even register what was happening, black SUVs screeched into the alleyway, Porsche, their doors flying open. Men in black tactical gear swarmed forward. Lisa gasped, but it was already too late. Daniels spun, grabbing Noah by the arm. Let me go, Noah yelled, struggling against the officer's iron grip. Lisa lunged forward, but one of the masked men slammed into her, knocking her to the ground. Noah! Noah kicked wildly, trying to break free, but Daniels' grip was like steel. This wasn't a rescue. This was a setup. You lied, Evelyn roared, reaching for her gun. But before she could fire, another man struck her from behind. She fell, gasping in pain. Noah's chest tightened as fear clawed up his throat. Let go of me, he screamed, his voice raw, desperate. Lisa fought against the man holding her back, her voice cracking with fury and terror. No! Please, give me back my son! Daniels didn't even look at her. With one final yank, he dragged Noah toward the waiting SUV. Lisa's scream shattered the night. Noah! The last thing Noah saw before the door slammed shut. His mother, on her knees, desperate, helpless. The car peeled away, tires screeching, and Noah realized in that moment he was alone. The cold metal chair dug into Noah's back. His wrists were bound behind him, the rope biting into his skin. The room was dimly lit, the air thick with a damp, suffocating silence. The only sound was the steady drip, drip of water from a leaking pipe somewhere above. He didn't know how long he had been here. Hours, days. Fear clawed at his chest, but he refused to let it show. Then, footsteps, slow, deliberate, each one echoing through the empty room like a countdown. And then he appeared. Silas. Noah had never seen him before, but he knew instantly this was the man everyone feared. Dressed in an immaculate black suit, he didn't look like a monster. No scars, no wild eyes, no signs of brutality. But Noah knew better, because Silas didn't need to raise his fists to be dangerous. His power was in his words. He stepped forward, his polished shoes clicking against the floor, and stopped just a few feet away. A slow, knowing smile spread across his lips. You're braver than I expected. His voice was smooth, almost casual, like they were two old friends catching up. Noah stayed silent, his jaw clenched. Silas tilted his head. No screaming? No begging? Most people do. Noah glared. I'm not most people. Silas let out a quiet chuckle, as if amused. Then, slowly, he pulled out a folder. Noah's breath hitched. He recognized it. It was old, the edges frayed, but the second Silas placed it on the table, Noah saw the name stamped across the front. James Thompson, his father's name. His pulse quickened. Silas noticed. Ah, he said, tapping the folder lightly, so you do know what this is. Noah swallowed hard, forcing himself to stay still. What do you want? Silas leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table between them. I want you to understand something, Noah. His fingers drummed lightly against the folder. You think your father was a hero, a good man, a man who stood for justice. Silas paused, letting the words sink in. Then, with an almost regretful sigh, he pushed the folder toward Noah. But you've been lied to. Noah's stomach twisted. Your father wasn't fighting against us. Silas's voice softened, like he was delivering bad news to a child. He was one of us. Noah stiffened. That's not true, Silas smiled. Not a cruel smile, but one of quiet confidence. Isn't it? He opened the folder. Inside, photos. James Thompson, younger, standing beside men dressed just like Silas, shaking hands with them, smiling. Noah's breath caught. Another photo, his father sitting at a table covered in documents, signing something. Another, James standing next to Daniels. No. Noah shook his head. You're lying. Silas let out a soft sigh, closing the folder. Why would I lie, Noah? What do I gain from this? His voice was so calm, so patient. I know you want to believe he was different, that he was better. But people don't change, Noah. Not really. He leaned closer. The man you thought was your hero? He worked for us, willingly, proudly, until he stole from us. Noah's thoughts spun. The pictures, the way Daniels had betrayed them, everything he thought he knew. Was it all a lie? Silas saw the hesitation in Noah's eyes, and he knew he had won the first battle. Now tell me, Noah, he murmured, his voice like silk. If your father really wanted to protect you, why did he leave you with something that could get you killed? Noah couldn't answer, because for the first time in his life, he wasn't sure he knew who his father really was. The room felt like it was closing in. Noah's mind was a storm, Silas's words still circling like vultures. If your father really wanted to protect you, why did he leave you with something that could get you killed? The seed of doubt had been planted, and Silas knew it. He leaned forward, watching Noah carefully, his voice turning almost gentle. It's hard, isn't it, learning the truth? He sighed, shaking his head. I almost feel sorry for you. Noah clenched his jaw, refusing to speak. Then, a noise, soft at first, a distant creak, like pressure on an old floorboard. Silas's eyes flickered toward the door. Noah barely had time to register what was happening before. Boom, the door exploded inward, wood splintering in every direction. Silas barely turned before a dark figure lunged through the smoke. Noah's heart stopped. James, his father, alive and furious. James moved with relentless speed, a man who had nothing left to lose. His fist slammed into Silas's jaw before the man could even react. The impact sent Silas staggering back, crashing into the table. A deep, guttural groan escaped his lips as he wiped the blood from his mouth. Silas blinked, momentarily stunned. Then he laughed. Well. His voice was smooth, unfazed. Back from the dead, are we? James's eyes burned with an unforgiving fire. You should have left my son alone. Silas smirked, but there was something different this time, a flicker of caution. And here I thought you'd come back to finish what you started. He tilted his head. You remember, don't you, the things you did for us? James didn't hesitate. He swung again, this time catching Silas across the ribs. Silas grunted, his breath hitching. The smirk faded. The two men circled each other, years of unspoken history and betrayal boiling beneath the surface. Noah's pulse pounded. This wasn't just a fight. This was war. Silas lunged first, a blur of motion, a fist aiming straight for James's throat. But James was faster. He twisted, dodging the strike, grabbing Silas by the collar and driving him into the wall. Crash! The impact rattled the room. Silas coughed, gasping for breath, but he wasn't finished. With a sharp elbow, he struck James in the side, breaking free. James stumbled back, catching himself, his breath heavy. Silas wiped his mouth again, his fingers coming away red. His expression darkened. You're too late, James. He motioned toward Noah, his voice dripping with satisfaction. The boy already doubts you. James's gaze flickered toward Noah. For the first time in years, they locked eyes. And in that moment, Noah saw something. Not just a fighter, not just a man chasing redemption, but his father, his protector. And suddenly, the doubt shattered. You don't get to take my son from me. James's voice was a low growl. Silas exhaled dramatically, shaking his head. Who said I need to? He reached for the gun at his waist. Noah's stomach dropped. James moved first, a blur, a struggle, a single gunshot. Then, Silas fell. The room plunged into silence. James stood over his motionless body, his chest heaving, his hands trembling around the gun. Then slowly he turned to Noah. Noah couldn't breathe. His father was here, real, alive, and for the first time he knew. James had never abandoned him. James swallowed hard, his voice raw. I'm here, son. Noah felt something hot sting his eyes, but the fight wasn't over. The black veil was still out there, and Noah still held the key to their destruction. The air was thick with tension. Noah's hands trembled as he stared at the laptop screen in front of him. The dimly lit warehouse was eerily silent except for the soft hum of the old computer. A single camera was set up, its red light blinking, a live broadcast. Millions of people were watching. The world was watching. This was it. He could still hear his father's voice behind him, steady, reassuring. You can do this, son. But could he? For years, he had no idea. No idea that his father had hidden something inside his own mind. No idea that the ledger wasn't some file or document. It was a sequence of numbers, an encryption key, buried deep in his memory. And now, if he got this wrong, the black veil would win. They would bury the truth. They would hunt him, his mother, and his father forever. Noah took a shaky breath. Then he closed his eyes. A memory. His father's voice, humming softly as he tucked him into bed. Sleep tight, buddy. Always remember, 10-4-6-2. Another memory. A game they played when he was little, James tapping patterns into his palm. Tap, tap, pause, tap, a rhythm repeating over and over. Noah's breath hitched. It wasn't just a lullaby. It wasn't just a game. It was a code. And he knew it. His eyes snapped open. His fingers moved on the keyboard, typing the numbers that had been locked in his subconscious for years. 10-4-6-2, 99-3-1, 87, 12-5. The screen flickered. A progress bar appeared. Decrypting, a second passed, then 2. Noah's heart pounded. And the screen filled with files, names, transactions, evidence. The entire network of corruption laid bare. A flood of classified documents leaked live in front of millions. He heard his father exhale. Lisa let out a choked sob. And then, the world exploded. The chat on the live stream erupted with messages. Is this real? My God, these are government officials. They've been lying to us. Arrests need to happen now. Noah barely had time to process it before his father grabbed his shoulder. We have to go. Because even as the truth spread across the world, even as journalists scrambled to verify what they were seeing, the black veil wouldn't go down without a fight. Suddenly, boom! The warehouse shook as gunfire erupted outside. They were coming. Lisa grabbed Noah's hand, her voice urgent. Run. Chaos. The black veil was crumbling, but not quietly. One by one, screens across the country flashed with breaking news. Government officials arrested in widespread corruption scandal. Dozens of high-profile judges and politicians indicted. The black veil, the secret cabal controlling the system, exposed. The world knew the truth. And the empire, the black veil had built for decades, was burning. But Noah wasn't thinking about that. He was running, with his mother, with his father, with the knowledge that he had done the impossible. He had survived, he had won, and for the first time in his life, bookmark go back. He was free. What a journey, right? Noah's courage changed everything, proving that even in the darkest moments, truth and justice can still win. If this story moved you, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps. Share this with friends and family who love powerful, inspiring stories. And if you want more content like this, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Your support means the world to us. Thank you for being part of this journey. See you in the next one.